to another discussion panel. Today we have individuals from Houston area that work in the engineering field and how engineering is works with GIS, which is a large part of the GIS field. My name is Nick Humphrey. I'm a GIS analyst for Montgomery County. I've been in the GIS field for about 20 years now. I started in the military. I served for 10 years doing a GIS analyst for the military. My last duty station was working as an instructor. I then moved to Houston here and got into the gas and oil fields, working as a GIS analyst in the engineering departments of different oil companies here. And now I work for Montgomery County. I'd like to start off by having George Culver introduce himself and where he comes from and his background.
Hi, thanks, Nick. My name is George Culver. I've been directing our GIS services at LJA Engineering for the past 20 plus years. We focus on support services for land development, transportation, surveying, right-of-way, oil and gas. We're really viewed within the company itself as as I mentioned, a support service. So when we're dealing with engineering side of the aspects, we fall underneath that.
Wonderful. Surya, please introduce yourself.
Yep. Hi there. Thanks, Nick. My name is Surya Gade. I work as a director of the geospatial services for Gulf companies. Our company has been in the business for about 70 years. About 70 years. I've been with the company for about 10 years. Prior to being the geospatial services director, I was a chief engineer, and by education, I'm a mechanical engineer. So we work on major and minor pipelines in the US and around the world. Pretty much, we are a consulting services company where we do from cradle to grave. That means concept to completion of the building the pipelines.
Wonderful. And Becky, please introduce yourself.
Thanks. I'm Rebecca Basquez. I am a GIS software engineer for a software engineering company in Houston. We work mostly with pipeline companies on the engineering side as well as the operator side. Before that, I was a GIS analyst working for several engineering companies. One of them was Gulf Interstate, and just working with them and using GIS tools as much as we could for their use to help build the pipeline.
Wonderful, wonderful. George, let's start with you. Why do you enjoy, you've been working for the company you said for 20 some odd years. What makes you sort of enjoy, why do you like GIS? What gets you going in the morning to go to work and work in the GIS field?
Gets me going in the morning to get to work. Not very far right now. It's just from the room to the office. Well, when I went to school, I graduated from Southwest Texas, which is now Texas State University. Went through their geography departments and really focused on cartography, which is, the art and science of making maps, and remote sensing. When I was going to school, GIS was not offered as a major or a degree, right? So we were kind of tucked inside the geography department. So I've really always had, I don't want to sound kind of quirky, but it's kind of like love of like maps, right? Like how can I express what I can on a sheet of paper? Coming out of school into the workforce, that's when GIS really took hold of things. I was lucky enough to fall in with an engineering company that had multiple disciplines. So what keeps me going all the time is every single day I'm doing something different. Whether I'm doing some sort of, utility analysis for capacity, talking about the engineering side of things, water, sanitary, drainage. The next day I'm doing planning activities for, a historic town trying to revitalize their downtown atmosphere. So every day we're lucky enough to where we have this huge, variety of work going across. So it's never mundane. GIS forces you to stay sharp. As the technology surrounding GIS advances, we have to advance with that also. Moving from the desktop environment to the web environment. I know we have some developers here. It's just it's a very fascinating industry to be in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Sir, you said that you've come from a mechanical engineering background and now you're running a GIS department, or one of the runners of that. How did that transition transpire, and what got you into the GIS field as coming from a mechanical study?
Yeah, the answer is simple. My boss told me to do that. No, it's actually so it's a great question. So just like you said, I'm a mechanical engineer by education. I take a pretty good pride in being an engineer. Soon after my graduate studies, I got into the corporate world as a specialist of hydraulics engineer, where I need to deal with multi-phase flows in the oil and gas industry, obviously, oil, gas, and water, all that good stuff, which is very fascinating, where I had to use all the calculus that I studied back in school. I'm sure high school grads will be wondering, why in the world I'm doing all this math? So I was fortunate enough, I was able to use this advanced math. I loved what I did, and I came to Gulf after that. We used to work for Fluor, and then I came to Gulf. Once again, I became the specialist where I need to deal with a lot of stress analysis, which is, as a mechanical engineer, you think in materials, the pipe materials and stuff like that. So I was pretty decent with that. Then I started leading pipeline projects, which are very, very fascinating. I didn't know much about pipelines when I was back in school. Pipelines to me was plumbing in our house. But when I got into the fascinating field and what's involved in designing the pipelines, it was really a rewarding experience. So while I was involved with the pipelines, we got to do a lot of impact analysis, just like George was saying, geospatial, like spatial analysis and stuff like that. You're going from point A to point B. As an engineer, you're looking at the routing of this pipeline, and also you're trying to minimize the environmental impacts. You're trying to minimize the landowner impacts. You're trying to be as friendly as possible to the earth. So there comes GIS. Rebecca and and I, we used to work together, and that's when I was introduced to GIS field. I was doing by hands and calculating the impacts manually. So when I got into one of the folks in the GIS department, he has shown me how easy it is to calculate all those impacts. So that started that piqued my interest. The viewers, the technology associated with GIS, and what we can possibly do, what takes several days, we could do in a few minutes. That really fascinated me. I grew more and more interest. And engineering and GIS, I don't think we can separate so much. GIS is an essential function. So long story short, cut to the chase, because of my fascination and passion towards engineering and the technology, I got into more and more understanding of the GIS technologies. So eventually I became the lead. My job function was to bring the engineering, to use GIS for engineering functions.
Great.
Hope that answers it.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Becky, you're doing software engineering now. How is that tied into GIS, and how has that changed from where you were working with Surya doing GIS analysis, and then when we were working together doing GIS analysis, and now you're sort of on creating the software. How does that all tie into it?
Yeah. So when I worked at Gulf Interstate, GIS has a Python component, which is a programming language, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, like Surya said, you can do things that used to take 2 days, you can do in minutes. Well, there's the Python component and the C# component, which was used to create ArcMap and ArcPro. Those were the things that interested me. I liked the programming side. When I went to school at A&M Corpus Christi, they offered GIS with a minor in computer science. It was required, which I was like, what? I'm not a computer science, but turns out I loved it. So I think that's why I liked GIS as well. Just to me, it's like solving a puzzle when it comes to the programming. So working at Gulf Interstate, I got that opportunity to learn more, and then at UPI as well. So, and I worked with a company that's called Blue Sky Development, and they make a software that pipeline engineering companies, even the operators use to make alignment sheets. And I made alignment sheets for years. So when they found out that I liked the programming side and they had an opening for a developer, I applied saying, hey, why not? And they were very interested because of my experience in pipeline as well. But yeah, programming, I think, is a big driving force with GIS because there's just so many opportunities to improve processes and to help with data integrity. That's one of the projects that we're working with one of our clients, is helping them with their data integrity, because that mega rule that's coming up from PHMSA that they're trying to get ready. So we're trying to help them, and I do truly believe GIS would be a big component of that.
Wonderful, wonderful. George, as somebody who's been in the field for 20 years, you said that GIS wasn't even offered in college when you went through it. Do you see GIS as a growing field? And then in what sort of capacity do you think, somebody who might be interested in doing it? Becky said the computer science aspect of it with, some scripting or software, some different programs, Python scripting or C++. Where do you think it's going? Where do you think GIS is it a growing field? And if so, in what direction?
Sure. The growing aspects, absolutely. I've seen it firsthand. Again, I'm lucky enough to work in an environment where it is varied, right? Each day, each thing we're doing is something different. It wasn't always like that. It's when the operators and the industries and the sectors really start to understand what GIS can do for them, that's when things really start to explode. We see GIS now in health industries, right? Pandemics, right? Fighting wildfires, right? Where to send people, right? There's all these different industries. I mean, we're here talking about engineering, but it's so much more expansive than that. Where it's going to, I think software engineering and development around GIS is extremely important. It allows us to reach more people inside of our office and also the clientele itself. I think the development side of things, like looking a little bit, further in the future here, I think once people start to get used to these big, augmented reality type glassware that you can actually, work with, I think that's also going to just spearhead a lot of the GIS functions. You can imagine yourself being able to see things that you can't actually see. So like utilities or pipelines, we'll kind of stay within that pipeline context since we have so many experts here on that. Can you imagine being a pipeline operator in the field, being able to see the pipeline underneath the ground because you have this augmented reality around you, the ability to pull up attributes from that, what type of material is down there, what type of commodity is down there, where are your split offs, where is it going? There's just so many different aspects of what GIS can do. And as more business professionals start to understand that, our field continues to grow.
Absolutely. Surya, would you agree with George on that? I mean, would you agree that it is a growing field and the virtual reality is sort of where it might be headed in one direction, but there's so many different aspects of that?
Absolutely, 100%. Just like George said, it's a very fascinating field and it's absolutely a growing field. The way as an engineer, the way I think about GIS is it's a great confluence of technical capabilities, like a professional fields engineering. Then we have survey. Then we have the technologies. When we say technologies, it's the when we are talking about growing, there is still some more path that needs to be carved in terms of machine learning and artificial intelligence. So I think, as we are gathering more and more data, about 15, 20 years ago, the data needs are not this drastic. Now we are gathering more and more data of all the things that we see around the world to make this world a better place in terms of whether you're designing certain things or doing something with the data. So GIS gives this capability of visualizing this data and digesting that information in a very expeditious fashion so that we can make great decisions, right? Mm-hmm. So in terms of growth, I think the machine learning and artificial intelligence is still, that's the growth I could see in the next 5 to 10 years, at least.
Great. Becky, would you agree with the other two that it's a growing field, and where do you see it going in the next 15, 20, 30 years?
Oh, for sure. Especially working with a software development company, we get requests from clients, and it's true. The minute they realize what GIS can do for them, I always call it the light bulb moment. You see it on their face when they see what it already does. And then that's when the floodgates open and they start to come to you with more requests and ideas. And, hey, how about this? Can they do this? And can it do that? And working for a software development company, we get those all the time. They'll call us about one issue with one of our software and they'll say, I've been thinking. And the minute they say that, we know, oh, they've got an idea, right? And sometimes we'll say, hey, you know what? That's a great idea. And we have had people talk to us about AI, mm-hmm. how, they want to take all the survey points that they collect and they want to be able to see it out in the field, especially things underneath, right? And they want to do that for integrity. So it's a growing field for sure. And the technology that Esri was one of the providers, right? The technology they just keep pushing out is great. So, yeah.
Great. So I just have a question, since a lot of people think GIS for everybody. We'll start with George. When was the last time you actually made a map? I mean, you think of GIS as map makers. When was the last time, you talk about the virtual thing, when was the last time you actually made a map for a customer, whether it be an alignment sheet map or a map of a downtown where somebody's trying to redo their historic area? Have you personally, not somebody that works for you, but when was the last time you actually made a map?
15 years ago.
15 years ago? Did you do it manually or did you do it on the computer?
No, on the computer. It's kind of that's a very unfair question for me. It's actually not. I think a lot of us, as we grow within an organization and we grow within our work environment, our responsibilities do have to shift. So a lot of us, as we progress along in our professional career, we have to make a decision whether we want to stay, hands-on desktop, or we need to move to more of a, management, right? Direction. So me personally, asking me the question of when was the last time that I actually made a map, it has been a very long time, right?
When was the last time somebody in your department? I mean, do you guys make maps every day? Somebody, a
Sure.
New person, a new analyst one.
Yeah, no, actually, so we keep very detailed work logs. Mm-hmm. So, last year we produced, I think it was, I'm gonna round off the number, but it was about 4,500 maps we made last year.
Wonderful.
So, I mean, we've made several already by this morning, by the time we're doing this interview. We are very map centric. So we'll push out products either on a hard copy map if needed. We'll do digital mapping, PDFs, things like that. But we're also heavily invested in web maps. So, migrating from this hard copy environment to, hey, I'm going to send you something through an email, to now pushing that information out through web services, whether we're using some embedded ESRI technology, as Rebecca mentioned earlier, or we're generating our own development apps.
Sorry, does your department, how many maps do you think your department has pushed out in the past year or so? I mean, are you still pushing out maps, or are you working on something else? Yeah, you're still muted, sir. Surya, turn off your mic.
Oh,
There
a
you
classic mistake.
go. That's all right. It's Zoom. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we do make quite a bit of maps, several hundreds to thousands, depends on the year. Depends on, yeah. So we do make hard copies because our end products that will be given to the construction folks. So they need to use the hard copies to construct those things that we design. But besides that, just like George was saying, we do have a lot of web services, because it's all about single source of truth, if you will. So COVID-19, we have the John Hopkins that map, which was very, very cool. So several people, cool in the sense from a data-centric standpoint, obviously. Different parts of the world, they push that data, and you have this one great map. You can see all the data in one place. Just like that, we deal with the fascinating thing about GIS is you tend to work with quite a varieties of people: environmental scientists, engineering, survey, landowner negotiators. So there's a lot of data that's coming into the GIS. So we use all that to make maps, just like you're saying, but also we put this on the web services so the people can have access to that at any given time. So yes, we do make maps.
Right. Becky, as a software person, I'm assuming you don't make too many maps in the software world as you're creating the software, but
Right.
are you looking at software and how to create better maps?
For sure. Especially with the web maps. I help out when it comes to ArcServer. If a client has a question and they're having an issue, especially with ArcPro, I've been helping them create web map services and just making it look prettier, because sometimes some people like to use really bright colors and stuff like that. But yeah, that's where I've been working mostly. I haven't made a paper map maybe, or it was probably an alignment sheet or a property map like in 2018. That was probably my last time. But yeah, web map services is probably where I've been working mostly.
Well, great. I want to thank you all. Do any of you have any other comments or questions or things you'd like to say that I may have missed in my discussion here?
No.
I'd like to thank you, Nick, for putting this on.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you
Much
all for
appreciated.
being here.
Yeah, and it was great to meet all of you.
Yeah.
Same here. I enjoyed the conversation, really. It's
Absolutely.
pretty good.
Absolutely. Thank you all very much. This will conclude our discussion panel with GIS and engineering. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good one.